photograph slipped from Ji-hoon's trembling fingers and landed face up on the hardwood floor between them. Amara's breath caught in her throat as she stared at the image of a chubby-cheeked infant with unmistakable dark skin and tight curls, wrapped in a yellow blanket embroidered with Korean characters she couldn't read. Her legs went weak. "Where did you get that?" The words came out strangled, barely above a whisper. Ji-hoon's face had drained of color, his jaw clenched so tight she could see the muscle twitching beneath his pale skin. He didn't answer. Instead, he turned away, his broad shoulders rigid as he walked toward the window of his apartment overlooking Seoul's glittering skyline. The silence stretched between them like a chasm opening wider with each passing second. Amara bent down and picked up the photograph with shaking hands. The baby in the picture couldn't have been more than 3 months old. Something about those eyes, that tiny nose, felt disturbingly familiar in a way that made her stomach twist into knots. She flipped the photo over and found neat handwriting on the back in both Korean and English. The English words made her blood run cold. Kim Amara. 3 months. Seoul National Hospital. March 1998. Ji-hoon. Her voice came out sharper now, edged with panic and confusion. "I said, where did you get this and why does it have my name on it?" He finally turned around, and she'd never seen such anguish on his usually composed face. The Ji-hoon she'd fallen for over the past 8 months was always so confident, so self-assured with his designer clothes and his effortless charm. This man looked broken, haunted by something she couldn't begin to understand. "I need you to sit down," he said quietly. "I don't want to sit down. I want you to explain to me why you have a baby picture with my name on it that I've never seen before in my entire life." Her hands were shaking so badly now that the photograph rattled. "My parents never showed me any pictures from when I was a baby. They always said they lost them when we moved from Korea to Nigeria. I was 3 years old. I don't remember anything before Lagos." Ji-hoon ran his hands through his perfectly styled black hair, ruining it completely. "That's because you weren't supposed to remember. And they weren't supposed to show you because those weren't their pictures to lose." The room spun. Amara grabbed the back of the leather sofa to steady herself. "What are you talking about? Stop speaking in riddles and just tell me what's going on. The reason your parents don't have baby pictures of you is because they're not your biological parents, Amara." The words came out fast, like he'd been holding them in for so long they finally exploded. "You were adopted. I'm from Seoul. When you were 3 years old." The laugh that burst from her throat sounded hysterical even to her own ears. "That's insane. That's absolutely insane. My parents would have told me something that important. You don't just hide that from your child for 26 years. Don't they?" Ji-hoon's eyes were glassy with unshed tears. "Families hide things all the time, Amara. Especially when revealing the truth would destroy everything they've built." She wanted to throw the photograph at him, wanted to scream that he was lying, that this was some sick joke. But the conviction in his voice, the raw pain etched across his features, told her he believed every word he was saying. More terrifying still, something deep in her gut whispered that he might be telling the truth. "How do you know this?" her voice cracked. "How could you possibly know something about my life that I don't know?" Ji-hoon reached into his back pocket and pulled out his phone. His fingers moved across the screen, and then he held it out to her. "Because my mother told me. 3 months ago, right before she died." Amara stared at the phone screen. It showed a photograph of a Korean woman, beautiful and elegant even in a hospital bed, her face gaunt but her eyes still fierce. She was holding a piece of paper with handwriting that matched the back of the baby photo. "Your mother?" Amara looked up at him, confusion swirling with dread. "What does your mother have to do with any of this?" everything. Ji-hoon set the phone down on the coffee table and sank onto the sofa, his head in his hands. My mother worked as a social worker at Seoul National Hospital in the 90s. She specialized in international adoptions, particularly adoptions involving mixed-race children who were being sent to families in Africa. The pieces were clicking together in Amara's mind, but she didn't want to accept the picture they were forming. You're saying your mother facilitated my adoption? I'm saying my mother did a lot more than that. Ji-hoon looked up at her, and the guilt in his eyes made her take an involuntary step back. When she was dying, she told me things. Secrets she'd been carrying for decades. She said she couldn't die without someone knowing the truth. She made me promise I would find you and tell you. Tell me what exactly. Amara's voice rose despite her efforts to keep it steady. What could possibly be so important that your dying mother sent you to hunt me down? She didn't send me to hunt you down. Ji-hoon stood up slowly, like he was approaching a frightened animal. We met by chance at that coffee shop 8 months ago. I spilled my Americano all over your laptop. Remember, you laughed instead of getting angry. You said it was fate. Amara's hand flew to her mouth. That day in Gangnam, she'd been so enchanted by the gorgeous Korean man who was so apologetic about the coffee incident that he'd insisted on buying her a new laptop. They'd talked for hours. He'd walked her home. 3 days later, he'd shown up at the design firm where she worked with flowers and an invitation to dinner. It felt like a fairy tale, like the universe had finally decided to give her something beautiful after she'd moved to Seoul alone, trying to reconnect with the country of her birth that she couldn't remember. It wasn't a chance, she whispered. You knew who I was. No. Ji-hoon moved toward her, but she held up her hand to stop him. I swear on my mother's grave, I didn't know who you were when we met. My mother had only given me a name and a birth date before she died. She told me you'd probably come back to Korea eventually, that adoptees often do. She said if I ever met a Nigerian woman named Amara who was born in March 1998, I needed to talk to you. But Seoul has 10 million people. I never thought I'd actually find you. And then there you were. So when did you figure it out? Tears were streaming down Amara's face now, hot and angry. When did you realize the woman you were sleeping with was the person your mother told you about? How long have you been lying to me? I found out 3 months ago. His voice broke. You mentioned your birthday at dinner. March 14th. The same date my mother had written down. And you'd told me before that you were born in Korea but raised in Nigeria. It all clicked. I went home and searched through my mother's things, and I found this. He gestured to the photograph still clutched in Amara's hand. She'd kept it all these years. 3 months. Amara felt like she might vomit. You've known for 3 months and you said nothing. We said I love you. We talked about me moving in here. And the whole time you were hiding this from me. I didn't know how to tell you. Ji-hoon's face was wet with tears now too. Every day I wanted to, but how do you tell someone that their entire life is built on a lie? And the more I fell in love with you, the harder it became because I knew this would destroy us. You're right about that. Amara's voice was ice. So why tell me now? Why not just keep your mouth shut and let me keep living in ignorance? Because my father found out that I know. Ji-hoon wiped his eyes roughly with the back of his hand. And he told me if I don't handle this situation, he will. His way. A chill ran down Amara's spine. What does your father have to do with any of this? My father runs the Kim Corporation. You know that. Ji-hoon's laugh was bitter. What you don't know is that back in the 90s, my family was involved in some very questionable business practices. My mother's adoption work wasn't just humanitarian. It was profitable. Very profitable. Amara felt her knees buckle. This time she did sink onto the sofa. Are you telling me I was sold? I'm telling you the truth is complicated. Ji-hoon knelt in front of her, trying to take her hands, but she yanked them away. Some of the adoptions my mother facilitated were legitimate. Orphans finding loving homes. But others were arranged through wealthy families who wanted to hide certain indiscretions. Mixed-race babies born to Korean mothers and African fathers were particularly problematic for some families back then. The shame, the scandal, it was too much. So they paid to make those children disappear into international adoptions. The room was spinning again. Amara gripped the edge of the sofa cushion. So my biological mother was Korean. Yes. And my biological father was African. Nigerian, we think. Based on where you were ultimately sent. We think. Amara's laugh was hollow. You've had 3 months to investigate this and you only think who are they, Ji-hoon, who are my real parents? That's what I've been trying to find out. Ji-hoon pulled out his phone again and opened a folder filled with documents. But my mother's files were deliberately incomplete. She used code names, not real names. Your case file refers to your biological mother only as Cherry Blossom and your father as Lagos Lion. I've been searching hospital records, birth certificates, trying to match dates and details, but there are gaps everywhere. Someone went to a lot of trouble to erase your paper trail. Amara grabbed the phone from him and scrolled through the documents. Most were in Korean, which she couldn't read fluently despite taking classes for the past 8 months. But she could make out dates, numbers, medical terminology. Why would someone erase my trail if my mother wanted to give me up? Just give me up. Why all this cloak and dagger nonsense? Because it wasn't just your mother's decision. Ji-hoon took the phone back gently. Based on what I've pieced together from my mother's notes, your biological mother wanted to keep you. But her family absolutely forbade it. They threatened to disown her, to ruin her life. And there's something else. What else could there possibly be? Amara was sobbing now, her whole body shaking. My mother's notes suggest your biological father wasn't just some random Nigerian man. He was someone important. Someone whose connection to a secret Korean baby could have caused serious international complications. Before Amara could process that bombshell, Ji-hoon's phone rang. He glanced at the screen and his face went even paler. It's my father. He knows you're here. How would he know that? Because I'm pretty sure he's been having me followed ever since he found out I had my mother's files. Ji-hoon stood up and moved to the window, peering out at the street below. He's terrified of what will happen if this story goes public. The Kim family built their reputation on integrity and charitable work. If people found out we were essentially trafficking babies for money 25 years ago, it would destroy everything. The phone kept ringing. Amara stared at it. Answer it. Amara, I don't think. Answer the phone, Ji-hoon. Let me hear what your father has to say about my life. Ji-hoon hesitated, then swiped to answer and put it on speaker. Hello, father, bring the girl to the house. The voice that came through was cold and authoritative, speaking in Korean. Now. I'm not bringing her anywhere. She just found out her entire life is a lie. She needs time. What she needs is irrelevant. The elder Kim's voice was sharp. This situation ends tonight. Either you bring her here, or I send people to collect you both. Your choice. The call ended. Ji-hoon looked at Amara with panic in his eyes. We should go. To meet the man who helped steal my identity. Amara stood up, anger burning away the shock. Absolutely not. If we don't go, he'll make good on his threat. My father doesn't make empty promises. Ji-hoon grabbed his jacket from the back of the sofa. But if we go together, I can try to protect you. I can make sure you get answers instead of just threats. Amara wanted to run. She wanted to grab her purse and walk out of this apartment and never see Ji-hoon or his family ever again. But the photograph was still in her hand, and that baby was her. Somewhere out there was a woman who'd given birth to her, who maybe wanted to keep her. Somewhere was a father whose identity was apparently important enough to hide. She deserved to know who they were. Fine. She wiped her eyes and straightened her shoulders. Let's go meet your father. But Ji-hoon, after tonight, we're done. You and I, whatever we had, it's over. The pain that flashed across his face was unmistakable, but he just nodded. I know. I'm sorry. For everything. The drive to the Kim family estate in Gangnam took 30 minutes through Seoul's Saturday evening traffic. Neither of them spoke. Amara stared out the window at the neon lights and crowds of people living their normal lives, completely unaware that her world had just imploded. She thought about calling her parents, the people she'd always known as her parents, in Lagos. But what would she even say? Did they know they were raising someone else's child, or had they been lied to as well? The Kim estate was even more imposing than Amara had imagined. She'd known Ji-hoon came from money, but this was on another level entirely. The main house was a modern architectural marvel, all glass and steel, surrounded by manicured gardens that probably cost more to maintain than most people earned in a year. Security cameras tracked their movement as Ji-hoon pulled through the gate. This is where you grew up? Amara asked, breaking the silence. This is where I was raised, Ji-hoon corrected quietly. I wouldn't say I grew up here. My father was always working. My mother was always working. I was mostly raised by housekeepers and tutors. Poor rich boy, Amara muttered, then immediately felt bad when she saw him flinch. None of this was really Ji-hoon's fault. He'd been a child when these events took place. But he had lied to her for 3 months, and that betrayal still stung like an open wound. They parked in the circular driveway, and before they could even exit the car, the massive front door opened. A man stood silhouetted in the light, and even from a distance, Amara could see the family resemblance. Kim Jae-sung was an older, harder version of his son, with silver hair and a bearing that spoke of absolute authority. Come inside, he called out in English. We have much to discuss. The interior of the house was just as intimidating as the exterior, filled with expensive art and furniture that looked like it belonged in a museum. Kim Jae-sung led them to a private study lined with books and dominated by a massive desk. He gestured for them to sit in the leather chairs across from him, but Amara remained standing. Miss Okafor, he began, his English crisp and British accented. I understand my son has shared some distressing information with you. Distressing? Amara laughed, the sound harsh in the quiet room. That's one word for finding out my entire identity is a lie, Mr. Kim. I can appreciate your anger. However, I need you to understand that what happened 26 years ago was done with the best of intentions. He steepled his fingers together. Your adoptive parents were carefully vetted. They were a loving couple desperate for a child. You were given a good life in Nigeria, were you not? That's not the point. Amara's hands balled into fists at her sides. The point is I had a right to know the truth. My biological mother had a right to keep me if that's what she wanted. Your biological mother was 17 years old. Kim Jae-sung's voice was cold. She was in no position to raise a child, especially not a mixed-race child that would have brought scandal upon her entire family. So you just erased me, instead shipped me off to another continent and pretended I never existed. We gave you a chance at a normal life." He stood up, moving to a cabinet and pulling out a crystal decanter of whiskey. He poured himself a glass without offering them any. "Your biological mother went on to finish her education. She married well. She has other children now, legitimate children. Why would you want to destroy that happiness with your sudden reappearance?" The cruelty of his words hit Amara like a physical blow. "Legitimate children? You mean children who weren't mistakes? Children who weren't inconvenienced? I mean children born within the bounds of marriage to appropriate partners." Kim Jae-sung sipped his whiskey. "I'm not here to debate morality with you, Miss Okafor. I'm here to make you an offer." "I don't want your money," Amara said immediately. "Everyone wants money." He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "But I'm not just offering money. I'm offering information. Real information about your biological parents. Names, addresses, medical histories. Everything my late wife kept in her private files. In exchange, you sign a non-disclosure agreement. You take the information, return to Nigeria, and never speak publicly about the Kim family's involvement in your adoption. You want to pay me to keep quiet about illegal adoption practices. I want to compensate you for your suffering and prevent unnecessary damage to innocent people." He set down his glass with a sharp click. "Your biological mother doesn't know I'm aware of her connection to you. She doesn't know that my wife kept records. If you approach her directly, you'll destroy her marriage, her reputation, and her children's futures. Is that what you want, revenge?" Amara felt Ji-hoon's presence beside her, silent but supportive. She wanted to look at him, to see if he thought she should take this deal, but she kept her eyes fixed on his father. "What if I want to meet her? What if she wants to meet me? Then you're living in a fantasy." Kim Jae-sung moved back to his desk and pulled out a folder. "But I'll let you decide. Here's what I'm offering. 500 million won. That's about $400,000. Enough to change your life significantly. Plus a complete dossier on your biological parents. You take it and disappear." He slid the folder across the desk. Amara stared at it like it might bite her. "And if I refuse? Then I'll ensure your biological mother is contacted by my lawyers before you can reach her. I'll make sure she knows someone is threatening to expose her past. I'll turn her against you before you ever have a chance to introduce yourself." His smile was reptilian. "By the time you track her down, she'll have a restraining order against you. Your biological father, too, if he's even still alive." "You're a monster," Amara whispered. "I'm a pragmatist." He pushed the folder closer. "And you have 24 hours to decide. Take the deal, or spend the rest of your life wondering what might have been while your biological parents deny your existence and my lawyers make your life a living hell." The room fell silent except for the ticking of an antique clock on the mantel. Amara looked at the folder, then at Ji-hoon, then back at Kim Jae-sung. Everything in her wanted to throw the money in his face, to tell him he couldn't buy her silence. But he was right about one thing. If her biological mother's current family didn't know about her, showing up unannounced could destroy lives. "I need to think about this," she said finally. "You have until tomorrow evening." Kim Jae-sung picked up his whiskey again. "Ji-hoon will make sure you have everything you need. I trust you'll make the intelligent choice, Miss Okafor. For everyone's sake." The dismissal was clear. Ji-hoon touched her elbow gently, guiding her out of the study. They didn't speak until they were back in the car, the Kim estate shrinking in the rearview mirror. "I'm sorry," Ji-hoon said quietly. "I knew my father could be cold, but that was cruel even for him." "Stop apologizing." Amara leaned her head against the window, exhaustion crashing over her. "Just take me home. To my place or yours." "Mine." She couldn't stand the thought of being in his space right now, surrounded by reminders of their relationship. "And don't come in. I need to be alone." The drive to her small apartment in Hongdae was silent. When Ji-hoon pulled up outside her building, he finally spoke again. "What are you going to do?" "I don't know." Amara opened the car door. "But whatever I decide, it's not your concern anymore." "Amara, please. I know I screwed up. I should have told you the moment I realized who you were, but my feelings for you were real." "Are real?" "That wasn't a lie." "Maybe not." She grabbed her purse. "But we were built on lies, Ji-hoon. Your mother's lies, your father's lies, your lies. How am I supposed to trust anything you say now?" "You can't." His voice was thick with emotion. "And I don't blame you for hating me. But if you need anything, any kind of support or help with whatever you decide about your biological parents, I'm here. No matter what." Amara wanted to slam the door in his face, but something in his eyes stopped her. He looked shattered, like she felt. "Goodbye, Ji-hoon." She closed the door carefully and walked into her building without looking back. In her tiny studio apartment, she finally allowed herself to completely fall apart. She collapsed on her bed and sobbed until her throat was raw and her eyes were swollen. When she finally had no tears left, she pulled out her phone with trembling hands. The contact photo for Mama showed a beautiful Nigerian woman with warm eyes and a bright smile. Amara's adoptive mother, Ruth Okafor, who'd raised her with love and devotion for 23 years. Her finger hovered over the call button. It was early morning in Lagos. Her parents would be awake, probably having breakfast before church. She pressed the call. "Amara, baby." Her mother's voice was immediate and joyful. "This is a surprise. How soul are you eating well? You know how you get when you skip meals." "Mama." Amara's voice cracked. "Mama, I need to ask you something. And I need you to tell me the truth." The line went quiet for a moment. When her mother spoke again, the joy was gone, replaced with something that sounded like dread. "What's happened? Are you all right? Am I adopted?" The silence that followed was deafening. Amara could hear her father's voice in the background, asking what was wrong. She heard her mother's sharp intake of breath, then muffled conversation as if she'd covered the phone. "Mama, answer me. Please." "How did you find out?" Her mother's voice was barely audible. The confirmation felt like a knife to the chest even though Amara had already known it was true. "So it's true. You've been lying to me my entire life." "No, baby, no. We never lied. We just didn't tell you because we didn't want you to feel different. You were our daughter from the moment we saw you. The adoption didn't matter. It matters to me." Amara was shouting now, not caring if her neighbors heard. "It matters that I've been walking around not knowing who I really am. It matters that somewhere in Korea I have a mother who gave me away. Did you know that? Did you know she didn't want to give me up but was forced to? We knew the adoption was private and complicated." Her father's voice came on the line now. He must have taken the phone from her mother. "We were told your biological mother was too young to care for you and that the adoption was in everyone's best interest. We were told not to ask too many questions. And you didn't. You just accepted this baby from halfway around the world without wondering why. We'd been trying to have children for 10 years. Her father's voice was heavy with old pain. 10 years of disappointments and heartbreak. When the adoption agency contacted us and said there was a 3-year-old girl who needed a home, we didn't question it. We thanked God for the blessing. Amara closed her eyes. She could hear the genuine emotion in her father's voice. They had loved her. They did love her. But that didn't make the deception hurt any less. Did you know it was illegal the way it was done? What are you talking about? Her mother had taken the phone back. The adoption was legal. We have all the paperwork. It was expensive and complicated, but everything was done properly. The people who facilitated it were basically selling babies, Mama. They were making unwanted mixed-race children disappear for rich Korean families who were embarrassed. You paid to be part of that system. That's not true. But her mother's voice wavered. We worked with a reputable agency. They told us everything was ethical. They lied. Amara pulled the baby photo from her purse and stared at it. Just like everyone has been lying. I found my case file, Mama. Or part of it anyway. My biological mother wanted to keep me. She was forced to give me up. Her mother was crying now. Amara could hear it. I'm so sorry, baby. I'm so sorry. We didn't know. You have to believe we didn't know. I don't know what to believe anymore. Amara wiped her own tears away roughly. I need some time. I need to figure out who I am without all these lies. Don't shut us out, please. Her mother was begging now. We're still your parents. We raised you. We love you. I love you too, Mama. But I can't talk to you right now. I just can't. She ended the call before her mother could protest further. The phone immediately started ringing with calls from both her parents, but she turned it off completely. She couldn't handle anyone else's emotions right now when her own were threatening to drown her. For hours, she sat in the darkness of her apartment, staring at the baby photo and trying to imagine the woman who'd held her, who'd wrapped her in that yellow blanket. What had she looked like? Did Amara have her eyes, her smile and her father, this mysterious Nigerian man important enough that his identity had to be erased? Who was he? Was he still alive? Did he even know she existed by the time dawn broke over Seoul? Painting her apartment in shades of pink and gold, Amara had made her decision. She wasn't going to take Kim Jae-sung's money. She wasn't going to sign away her right to know where she came from. But she also wasn't going to let him control the narrative. She turned her phone back on and ignored the 20 missed calls from her parents. Instead, she opened a new message to Ji-hoon. I need everything, every file your mother had. Every note, every document, every scrap of information. And I need it before your father's deadline. The reply came within seconds. I'll bring it all to you today. Whatever you need. 3 hours later, Ji-hoon appeared at her door with 2 large boxes. His eyes were red-rimmed like he hadn't slept either. He set the boxes down in her tiny living room and straightened up. This is everything I could find in my mother's private office before my father had it cleared out. There's more in Korean than English, but I can translate for you if you want. I want to. Amara knelt beside the boxes and opened the first one. It was full of manila folders, each labeled with codes and dates. Where do we start? Your file is marked CB 1998-03. Ji-hoon knelt beside her and began sorting through folders. CB for Cherry Blossom. That was your mother's code name. They found the file halfway through the second box. It was thicker than Amara expected, maybe 50 pages of documents in various languages. Ji-hoon spread them out on her floor, and they began to piece together the story. Your mother's real name was Park Min-ji. Ji-hoon pointed to a document that looked like an intake form. She was 17 when she got pregnant. A high school student from a wealthy family in Gangnam. Her father was some kind of business executive. Was Amara looked up sharply. He died 10 years ago. Heart attack. Ji-hoon kept reading. But her mother is still alive. Park Sun-hee. She lives in the same house where they raised Min-ji. My grandmother. The word felt strange in Amara's mouth. I have a grandmother. Ji-hoon pulled out another document, this one with photographs attached. These are photos from the hospital. Look. Amara's hands shook as she took the paper. The photos showed a young Korean girl, barely more than a child herself, holding a newborn baby. The girl's face was exhausted but radiant with an emotion Amara recognized instantly as love. This was her mother. Park Min-ji. She had her mother's nose, her chin. Even in the faded photograph, the resemblance was unmistakable. She looks so young, Amara whispered. She was young. Too young, my mother noted. Ji-hoon pointed to handwritten notes in Korean. It says here that Min-ji wanted to keep you. She begged her parents to let her drop out of school and raise you. But they refused. They told her she would bring disgrace on the family. That no decent man would marry her if it became known she'd had a child out of wedlock with a foreigner. So they made her give me up. According to these notes, they gave her an ultimatum. Give up the baby for adoption, or be disowned completely. No money, no family support, nothing. Ji-hoon's finger traced down the page. Min-ji was devastated. My mother wrote that she spent 3 days in the hospital refusing to sign the adoption papers. But eventually, she broke. She signed. Amara could barely see through her tears. And my father, who was he? Ji-hoon shifted through more papers, his frown deepening. That's where it gets complicated. My mother's notes about your father are deliberately vague. She refers to him only as the Lagos client, but there's a reference here to diplomatic immunity that suggests he was someone important. Maybe a politician or business leader visiting Korea. So he might not have even known my mother was pregnant. Or he knew and didn't care. Ji-hoon pulled out another folder. There's a letter here. It's in Korean, but it's from your mother. Want me to translate? Amara nodded, not trusting her voice. Ji-hoon cleared his throat and began to read, translating as he went. My dearest daughter. I am writing this knowing you may never read it, but I need to say these words anyway. Giving you away is the hardest thing I will ever do. My parents say I'm too young to be a mother, that I don't understand the responsibility. But I understand love. From the moment I felt you move inside me, I loved you. From the moment I held you, I knew I would never love anything or anyone as much as I love you right now. His voice cracked, but he continued. They say you'll have a better life in Nigeria with parents who can give you things I cannot. They say I'm selfish for wanting to keep you when I have nothing to offer. Maybe they're right. Maybe you will have a better life without me. But please know, wherever you go, whatever you become, you were wanted. You were loved. I'm not giving you up because I don't want you. I'm giving you up because I love you too much to let my family destroy us both. Ji-hoon set the letter down gently. There's more, but I think you get the idea. She didn't want to give you up, Amara. She was forced. Amara took the letter with trembling hands, even though she couldn't read the Korean characters. Just knowing her biological mother had written these words, had felt this pain, made her feel less alone. Is there an address, some way to find her? There's an old address from 1998, but people move. Especially over 26 years. Ji-hoon pulled out his phone. But I can search for her. Park Min-ji is a common name, but with her age and the fact that she was from Gangnam, we can narrow it down. For the next 2 hours, they searched. Ji-hoon used every resource he had access to, calling in favors from friends who worked in various databases, searching social media, and cross-referencing addresses. Finally, he sat back with a look of triumph mixed with apprehension. I found her. Amara's heart stopped. Where? She still lives in Seoul. She's married, like my father said. Her name is now Choi Min-ji. Her husband is Choi Seung-ho, and they have 3 children. 2 boys and a girl. He turned his phone to show her a Facebook profile with privacy settings that allowed them to see a profile picture but nothing else. The woman in the photo was beautiful in a refined way, with perfect hair and expensive clothes. She was smiling in front of what looked like a luxury department store, surrounded by shopping bags. She looked happy. She looked nothing like someone who'd been forced to give up a child 26 years ago. She moved on, Amara said flatly. She has her perfect life now with her legitimate children. Or she built a life on top of her trauma and is desperately trying to keep it together. Ji-hoon's voice was gentle. You don't know what she's been carrying all these years. Does she deserve to have her perfect life disrupted by the mistake she was forced to give away? The words tasted bitter. You're not a mistake. Ji-hoon grabbed her hands, forcing her to look at him. Whatever circumstances led to your birth, you are not a mistake. And I guarantee your biological mother doesn't think of you that way either. That letter proves it. Amara pulled her hands away, but the intensity in Ji-hoon's eyes had kindled something in her chest. Maybe determination. Maybe hope. So what do I do? Just show up at her house and introduce myself? Hi, I'm the baby you gave away? Surprise. You take your time and figure out the right approach. He stood up and began organizing the files back into the boxes. But first, you need to decide if you're going to take my father's deal or not. You have until tonight. I'm not taking his deal. Amara stood up too, feeling steadier than she had in hours. I'm not going to let him silence me. Then you need to be prepared for him to make good on his threats. He'll try to turn Min-ji against you before you can reach her. Let him try. Amara squared her shoulders. I have proof now. I have the letter, the photos, the documents. If he contacts her first, I'll just show her everything and let her decide if she wants to know me. Ji-hoon looked at her with something like admiration. You're really going to do this? I'm really going to do this. She looked at the boxes of files, then at the baby photo still lying on her floor. I deserve to know where I came from. And my biological mother deserves to know what happened to me. Your father doesn't get to decide for both of us. Then let me help you. Ji-hoon moved closer. I know you hate me right now, and you have every right to. But I can help you navigate Korean culture, translate when you need it, and run interference with my father. Please let me help you fix what my family broke. Amara studied his face, looking for any sign of deception. All she saw was genuine remorse and determination. Why do you care so much about helping me? Because I love you. He said it simply, without artifice. And because my mother died knowing she'd done terrible things. She couldn't fix them, but maybe I can. Maybe helping you is how I honor her memory in a way that actually matters. I can't promise I'll ever forgive you for lying to me. I know. And I can't promise we'll get back together, even if this works out. I know that too. But I could use an ally. She held out her hand. So if you're serious about helping, no more lies. No more secrets. Everything transparent from here on out. He shook her hand, his grip firm and warm. Everything is transparent. I promise. They spent the rest of the day making plans. Ji-hoon taught Amara basic Korean phrases she'd need. They drafted a letter to Min-ji explaining who Amara was and asking for a meeting. They researched Korean adoption law to understand Amara's legal rights. And they prepared for Kim Jae-sung's inevitable retaliation. As the sun set and Ji-hoon's deadline approached, his phone rang. His father. Amara nodded for him to answer. Hello, father. It's time. What is Miss Okafor's decision? Ji-hoon looked at Amara, and she nodded firmly. She's declining your offer. She's going to contact Park Min-ji directly. The silence on the other end was ominous. When Kim Jae-sung spoke again, his voice was cold as ice. Then you've both made a serious mistake. I'll be contacting Mrs. Choi's lawyers within the hour. By tomorrow, she'll have a restraining order against Miss Okafor. And Ji-hoon, since you've chosen to side with this woman over your family, consider yourself cut off. No more allowance. No more company apartments. You're on your own. I understand. Ji-hoon's voice was steady despite the color draining from his face. Do what you need to do, father. The call ended. Ji-hoon set his phone down carefully. Well, that went about as well as expected. He just disowned you. Amara felt a stab of guilt. Ji-hoon, maybe you should. Don't. He held up a hand. This is my choice. I'm tired of my family using money and power to cover up their mistakes. If being cut off is the price of doing the right thing, I'll pay it. But where will you live? How will you support yourself? I have savings. I have a degree in business, I'll figure it out. He smiled, and for the first time since this whole nightmare began, it reached his eyes. Besides, I've always wondered what it would be like to make my own way in the world without my father's shadow hanging over me. Before Amara could respond, her phone buzzed with an email notification. She opened it and felt her blood run cold. Ji-hoon, look at this. The email was from a law firm, sent to an address Amara had listed on her designer portfolio. It was a cease and desist letter, demanding she make no contact with Choi Min-ji or any member of the Choi family under threat of legal action. Attached was a restraining order application that had apparently already been filed with a court. He works fast, Ji-hoon muttered, reading over her shoulder. But this is just an application. It hasn't been granted yet. We probably have a few days before it's processed. Then we need to move now. Amara was already grabbing her jacket. Tonight. We need to see her tonight before the restraining order goes through. Are you sure? Don't you want to send the letter first, give her time to process? Your father isn't giving us time. If we wait, she'll be primed to reject me before I ever get to tell my side. Amara shoved the baby photo and the letter from her biological mother into her purse. We do this now, or we don't do it at all. Ji-hoon grabbed his keys. Then let's go. The drive to the Gangnam address Ji-hoon had found for Choi Min-ji felt surreal. Amara's hands wouldn't stop shaking. She tried to rehearse what she'd say, but every version sounded insane in her head. How did you tell someone you were the baby they'd been forced to give up 26 years ago? How did you explain that their past had come back to haunt them? The Choi family home was in an exclusive neighborhood, a beautiful traditional Korean house updated with modern amenities. Lights blazed from the windows, and Amara could see silhouettes moving inside. A family having dinner. A family that had no idea their world was about to change. We can still turn back, Ji-hoon said quietly. Take some more time to think this through. No. Amara opened the car door. If I don't do this now, I'll lose my nerve. They walked up to the front door together. Amara raised her hand to knock, then hesitated. What if Min-ji slammed the door in her face? What if she denied everything? What if she looked at Amara with disgust or regret? You've got this, Ji-hoon whispered, giving her shoulder a gentle squeeze. Amara knocked. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then footsteps approached, and the door opened to reveal a teenage girl, maybe 15 years old, with earbuds in her ears. She looked at Amara with mild curiosity, then said something in Korean. English? Amara asked. Oh, sorry. Can I help you? The girl's English was perfect, tinged with a slight American accent. I need to speak to Choi Min-ji. Is she home? That's my mom. Who should I say is here? Amara's breath caught. This girl was her half-sister. They shared DNA. They shared a mother. Can you tell her Amara is here from the hospital in 1998? The girl looked confused but shrugged and disappeared back into the house, calling out for her mother. Amara heard a woman's voice respond, and heard footsteps approaching. And then Park Min-ji, now Choi Min-ji, appeared in the doorway. She looked older than her Facebook photos, with fine lines around her eyes and a few threads of grey in her perfectly styled hair. She was beautiful in a mature way, dressed in expensive casual clothes like she'd just come from a yoga class. Her eyes swept over Amara with polite confusion. Yes, can I help you? Mrs. Choi, my name is Amara Okafor. Amara forced the words out past the lump in her throat. I was born Kim Amara at Seoul National Hospital in March 1998. You gave birth to me when you were 17 years old. The color drained from Min-ji's face so fast Amara thought she might faint. She gripped the doorframe for support, her eyes going wide with shock and something that might have been recognition. When she spoke, her voice was barely audible. That's impossible. It's not impossible. I have proof. Amara pulled out the baby photo and the letter. You wrote this letter 26 years ago. You wrapped me in a yellow blanket with Korean characters. You held me for 3 days before your parents made you sign the adoption papers. Min-ji stared at the items in Amara's hands like they were ghosts from her past come to life. Her hands came up to her mouth, and she made a sound somewhere between a gasp and a sob. Oh my God! Oh my God, you're real! You're here! Mom! The teenage girl appeared behind her mother, concerned on her face. Mom, what's wrong? Who is this? Min-ji didn't answer. She was staring at Amara with tears streaming down her face, her whole body trembling. I thought I'd never see you again. They told me you went to Nigeria. They said you had a good family. I tried to find you so many times over the years, but I didn't even know what name they'd given you. They named me Amara. It means eternal in Igbo. Eternal. Min-ji repeated the word like a prayer. I held you for 3 days. 3 days. And then they took you away, and I felt like I died. Part of me died that day. The teenage girl was looking between them now, understanding beginning to dawn on her face. Mom, is this woman saying she's your daughter? That means she's my sister. Before Min-ji could answer, a man's voice came from inside the house. Min-ji, who's at the door? Dinner's getting cold. A man appeared, tall and distinguished looking in business casual clothes. He must be Choi Seung-ho, Min-ji's husband. He took one look at the scene, his wife crying, a stranger at the door holding old photographs, and his expression hardened. What's going on here? Seung-ho, this is Amara. Min-ji's voice was shaking. She's my daughter, the baby I gave up before I met you. The silence that followed was deafening. Amara watched as Choi Seung-ho processed this information, his face going through a rapid series of expressions before settling into something cold and closed off. "Get inside," he said to his wife and daughter. "Now." "No." Min-ji straightened up, wiping her eyes. "No, I'm not going to hide her again. She's my daughter, and she's standing right here, and I want to talk to her. We had an agreement when we got married." Seung-ho's voice was low and dangerous. "You told me about your past, and I accepted it on the condition that it stayed in the past. This woman showing up threatens everything we've built. This woman is my daughter." Min-ji's voice rose. "And I'm not sending her away again. I did that once, and it destroyed me. I won't do it twice." Their daughter was crying now, overwhelmed by the sudden family drama. Ji-hoon stepped forward, speaking in Korean, probably trying to calm the situation. But Seung-ho waved him off angrily. "I know who you are," he said in English, glaring at Ji-hoon. "You're Kim Jae-sung's son. This is his doing, isn't it? He's trying to cause trouble for our family." "Actually, it's the opposite," Amara said, finding her voice. "Your father-in-law tried to pay me to stay away. He tried to make sure Min-ji would never know I came looking for her. I'm here because I have questions. Because I deserve to know where I came from. And because I think Min-ji deserves to know what happened to the baby she was forced to give up." Seung-ho looked like he wanted to argue, but Min-ji put her hand on his arm. "Please," she said softly. "She came all the way from Nigeria. The least we can do is hear her out." The internal struggle was visible on Seung-ho's face. Finally, he stepped back. "Fine. But this conversation happens inside, away from the neighbors. And it better not take long." They all filed into the house, tension thick enough to cut with a knife. The living room was beautifully decorated with a mix of traditional Korean and modern elements. Two young boys, maybe 10 and 8 years old, were playing video games in the corner. They looked up curiously as the group entered. "Boys, go to your rooms," Seung-ho ordered. "Now." "But Dad." "Now." The boys scurried away, and the teenage daughter followed them reluctantly, casting curious glances back at Amara. When they were alone, Min-ji gestured for Amara and Ji-hoon to sit on the sofa. She took a chair across from them, while Seung-ho remained standing by the fireplace, arms crossed defensively. "I don't even know where to start," Min-ji said, wringing her hands. "I have so many questions. Are you all right? Did you have a good life? Were your adoptive parents kind to you?" "They were wonderful," Amara said honestly. "They loved me. They gave me everything they could. I only found out about the adoption a few days ago." Min-ji's eyes widened. "They never told you?" "No, they said they thought it was better if I didn't know. They didn't want me to feel different." Amara pulled out the letter. "But I would have wanted to know. I would have wanted to know that I came from you. That you loved me." Min-ji took the letter with trembling hands, tears falling onto the paper as she read her own words from 26 years ago. "I meant every word," she whispered. "Every single word. Giving you up was the worst day of my life." "Then why did you?" The question burst out of Amara before she could stop it. "I know your parents pressured you, but you were her mother. You could have fought for me." The pain that flashed across Min-ji's face was raw and immediate. "You think I didn't want to fight? I was 17 years old, Amara. I had no job, no money, no education beyond high school. My parents told me if I kept you, they would disown me completely. Not just cut me off financially, but tell everyone I knew about the shame I'd brought on the family. They said no one would ever hire me, no decent family would ever accept me. And they were probably right. Korea in the 90s was not kind to unwed mothers, especially ones with mixed-race children. So you chose your reputation over your daughter. Amara couldn't keep the bitterness from her voice. I chose survival, Minji shot back, her own voice rising. I chose the option that wouldn't leave both of us homeless and desperate. The adoption agency promised you'd go to a good family, that you'd have opportunities I couldn't give you. Was I supposed to keep you in poverty just to satisfy my own need to hold on to you? You could have tried. I did try. Minji stood up, her composure cracking completely. I tried everything. I begged my parents for months before you were born. I researched programs for young mothers. I looked into government assistance. But there was nothing. Nothing that would let me keep you and still have any kind of future. So I made an impossible choice, and I've lived with that guilt every single day for 26 years. The room fell silent except for Minji's ragged breathing. Seung-ho moved to his wife's side, putting a supportive hand on her shoulder. When he spoke, his voice was gentler than before. Minji told me about you on our third date. She said she'd had a daughter once and had to give her up, and that if I couldn't accept that part of her past, we should stop seeing each other. I accepted it because I loved her. But I also thought it would stay in the past. I didn't think we'd ever be confronted with the reality of her sitting in our living room. I'm not here to ruin your family, Amara said quietly. I just wanted to know where I came from. I wanted to meet the woman who gave birth to me. And I wanted her to know that I turned out okay despite everything. Minji sank back into her chair, wiping her eyes. You did turn out okay. Look at you, you're beautiful and strong and brave enough to track down your biological mother after 26 years. I'm proud of you, even though I have no right to be. You have every right, Amara found herself saying. You're my mother. Biology matters, even if you didn't raise me. What about your biological father? Seung-ho asked. Does he know you're searching for your origins? Amara glanced at Ji-hoon, then back to Minji. That's actually one of the reasons I'm here. The adoption files only refer to him by a code name. Lagos Lion. Do you know who he was? Do you know his real name? Minji's face went carefully blank. Why do you want to know about him? Because he's my father. I deserve to know who he is just like I deserve to know who you are. Some things are better left alone. Minji's voice had gone cold. Your father was a mistake. A brief relationship that never should have happened. He doesn't need to be part of this story. But he is part of this story. He's half of my DNA. Amara leaned forward. Please, Minji. I'm not asking you to reconnect with him. I'm just asking for a name. Let me decide if I want to find him. No. The word was final. I will not give you his name, and you need to stop asking. Why? Frustration boiled over in Amara's chest. What are you protecting, or who are you protecting? Myself. Minji stood again, her voice sharp. I'm protecting myself and my family. Your father was not a good man, Amara. He was older, he was manipulative, and he took advantage of a naive teenage girl who thought she was in love. When I told him I was pregnant, he offered to pay for an abortion and then disappeared from my life completely. He didn't want you. He didn't want me. And I will not give you his name so you can go chase after a man who abandoned you before you were even born. The words hit Amara like physical blows. Her father hadn't wanted her. He'd tried to pressure her mother into an abortion. He'd disappeared. She'd built up this fantasy in her head that maybe he didn't know about her, that maybe if she found him he'd be happy to discover he had a daughter. But the reality was so much worse. "I'm sorry," Minji said more gently, seeing Amara's devastation. "I know that's not what you wanted to hear. But you asked for the truth, and that's the truth. Your father was not a good person, and you're better off not knowing him." Before Amara could respond, there was a sharp knock at the front door. Seung-ho went to answer it, and voices drifted back to the living room. When he returned, his face was grim. "There are two men at the door. They say they're from a law firm representing Kim Jae-sung. They're here to serve papers to both Minji and Amara." "What papers?" Minji looked confused. "Restraining orders, most likely." Ji-hoon stood up, his expression dark. "My father said he'd make good on his threats. He's trying to legally separate you two before you can have this conversation." "Well, he's too late." Minji moved to stand beside Amara. "We've already had our conversation. Tell those men they can give me whatever papers they want, but I'm not going to deny my daughter's existence to protect a secret that's been rotting for 26 years. Seung-ho looked at his wife in surprise, then something shifted in his expression. "Pride, maybe? Or respect? Are you sure this will cause problems?" "I'm sure." Minji reached down and took Amara's hand. "I gave her up once to avoid scandal. I'm not doing it again." Amara felt tears prick her eyes at the gesture. This woman, her biological mother, was choosing her. It didn't erase 26 years of absence, but it meant something. It meant everything. Ji-hoon moved toward the front door. "Let me handle the lawyers. I speak their language." He disappeared, and they could hear raised voices from the entryway. After several minutes, Ji-hoon returned with two legal documents. They cease and desist orders backed by restraining order applications. "Minji, you're being ordered not to have contact with Amara pending a court hearing. Amara, you're being ordered not to approach the Choi family or discuss the adoption publicly." On what grounds? Seung-ho took one of the documents and scanned it. "This is ridiculous. They're claiming Amara is harassing Minji and threatening our family's safety. That's complete fabrication. It's a standard intimidation tactic," Ji-hoon said. "File for an emergency restraining order with exaggerated claims, hoping the other party will back down before it gets to court. But if Minji is willing to testify that she invited Amara here and wants contact with her, the restraining order won't hold. Then I'll testify." Minji squeezed Amara's hand. "I'm not letting them do this to us again. You should know that going against Kim Jae-sung will have consequences," Ji-hoon warned. "He has connections throughout Seoul's legal and business communities. He can make life difficult for your family. Let him try." Seung-ho moved to stand with his wife, presenting a united front. "I've built my career on my own merits, not on someone else's goodwill, and I'll be damned if I'm going to let some corporate bully tell my wife she can't know her own daughter." Amara looked between these two people who barely knew her but were willing to fight for her anyway, and she felt something crack open in her chest. Maybe it was hope. Maybe it was healing. She didn't know yet, but it felt like a beginning. "Thank you," she whispered. "Both of you. Thank you for not turning me away." Minji pulled Amara into a hug, and for a moment, Amara let herself believe this was what it felt like to be held by her mother. Really held, not as a 3-day-old infant but as a grown woman who'd survived 26 years without this embrace. Minji was crying into her shoulder, whispering apologies and promises and all the things she'd wanted to say for decades. When they finally pulled apart, Minji held Amara at arm's length, studying her face. "You have my eyes, she said with a watery laugh. And my stubborn chin. But your smile is all your own. It lights up your whole face. I want to get to know you, Amara said. Really know you. Not just one conversation and then legal papers keeping us apart. Can we do that? Yes. Minji didn't hesitate. Yes, we can do that. Whatever it takes, whatever legal hoops we have to jump through, I want you in my life. If you'll have me. I'd like that. The teenage daughter had crept back into the room at some point, and now she approached cautiously. So does this mean I have an older sister? Minji laughed and gestured to her over. Yes, Hannah. This is your sister, Amara. Amara, this is Hannah. She's 15 and too smart for her own good. Hannah studied Amara with open curiosity. This is so weird. But also kind of cool. I always wanted an older sister. My brothers are annoying. Hey! Two young voices called out in protest from where the boys had been eavesdropping from the hallway. Despite everything, Amara found herself laughing. This strange, instant family was messy and complicated, but it was real. She had siblings. She had a biological mother who wanted to know her. It wasn't the fairy tale reunion she'd sometimes imagined, but it was better than the rejection she'd feared. Ji-hoon cleared his throat. I hate to interrupt, but we need to figure out our next steps. The court hearing for the restraining orders is scheduled for 3 days from now. We need to prepare a response. I know a good lawyer, Seung-ho said. Someone who's not intimidated by the Kim family's influence. I'll call her first thing tomorrow. In the meantime, maybe you should both stay here tonight, Minji suggested. It's late, and I don't want to risk Kim Jae-sung's people causing more trouble. Amara glanced at Ji-hoon, who nodded. That's probably wise. My father is nothing if not persistent. So they stayed. Minji made up the guest room for Amara and put Ji-hoon in the study with a futon. Over late-night tea, Amara told Minji about her life in Lagos, about her adoptive parents, about moving to Seoul to work as a designer. Minji told Amara about finishing school, meeting Seung-ho, building a life that always had a daughter-shaped hole in it. The boys, Min-soo and Tae-hyun, warmed up to Amara quickly, fascinated by her stories about Nigeria. Hannah peppered her with questions about African fashion and music. Even Seung-ho relaxed as the night wore on, seeing how naturally Amara fit into the family dynamic. As dawn approached and everyone finally headed to bed, Minji caught Amara in the hallway. I know I don't have the right to ask this, but I need you to know something. I thought about you every day for 26 years. Every birthday, every holiday, I wondered where you were and if you were happy. You were never forgotten. You were never just a mistake I left behind. You were always my daughter. Amara hugged her again, and this time it felt a little less strange. I believe you. And I'm glad I came looking for you. Me too, Minji whispered. Me too. The next few days were a whirlwind. Seung-ho's lawyer, a fierce woman named Park Ji-eun, took their case immediately and began dismantling Kim Jae-sung's legal arguments. Ji-hoon used his insider knowledge of his father's business tactics to anticipate their moves. And Amara spent every possible moment getting to know her biological family. She video called her adoptive parents in Lagos and, after a long tearful conversation, got their blessing to pursue a relationship with Minji. Her mother Ruth said she'd always known this day might come and she just wanted Amara to be happy. Her father James reminded her that love wasn't a finite resource, that having a relationship with Minji didn't diminish the family bond they'd built over 23 years. The court hearing arrived too quickly. Amara stood in the hallway outside the courtroom, flanked by Min-ji on one side and Ji-hoon on the other. Kim Jae-sung arrived with a legal team that looked expensive and intimidating, but he didn't acknowledge his son's presence. Inside the courtroom, the judge listened to both sides. Kim Jae-sung's lawyers painted Amara as an opportunist trying to extort money from wealthy families by making false adoption claims. They presented evidence of her aggressive behavior and threats. Then Park Ji-eun stood up and calmly destroyed their case. She presented Min-ji's original letter, authenticated by handwriting experts. She showed medical records that proved Amara was born at Seoul National Hospital on the exact date claimed. She had Min-ji testify that she'd invited Amara to her home voluntarily and wanted continued contact. Most damning of all, she revealed that Kim Jae-sung's late wife's adoption files contained evidence of multiple illegal adoptions, turning him from plaintiff to potential defendant. The judge took less than an hour to dismiss the restraining orders and suggest the prosecutor's office might want to investigate the Kim family's adoption practices. Kim Jae-sung stormed out of the courthouse without a word, his lawyers scrambling to follow. Ji-hoon watched his father leave, his expression unreadable. "That's probably the last time I'll see him for a while." "I'm sorry," Amara said quietly. "You lost your family because of me." "No." Ji-hoon turned to her with a small smile. "I lost my father's approval because I chose to do the right thing. There's a difference. And I gained something more important." "What's that?" "The knowledge that I can make decisions I'm proud of. That I don't need my family's money or approval to be a good person." He glanced at Min-ji, who was talking with her lawyer. "And maybe, if you're willing, a second chance to be worthy of your trust." Amara considered him carefully. Over the past few days, she'd watched Ji-hoon help her family prepare for the hearing, seen him make sacrifice after sacrifice without complaint. He'd lost his apartment, his allowance, probably his inheritance, all because he'd chosen to support her instead of his father. That meant something. "I'm not ready to jump back into a relationship," she said honestly. "Too much has happened. But maybe we can start over. As friends first, and see where it goes from there." Ji-hoon's face lit up with genuine joy. "Friends sounds perfect." Over the following months, Amara built a relationship with Min-ji that was sometimes awkward, often emotional, but always worthwhile. She got to know her half-siblings, who went from curiosity to genuine affection. Seung-ho warmed to her considerably, even offering to help her expand her design business in Seoul. Ji-hoon found an apartment in a less expensive neighborhood and got a job at a mid-sized company that appreciated his skills without caring about his family name. He and Amara spent time together carefully rebuilding trust. It was slow and sometimes frustrating, but it was real. The adoption agency that had facilitated Amara's adoption came under investigation, and several other adoptees came forward with similar stories. Kim Jae-sung managed to avoid prosecution by claiming ignorance of his wife's illegal activities, but his reputation was permanently damaged. As for Amara's biological father, she eventually made peace with not knowing his identity. Min-ji's reluctance to reveal his name came from a place of protection, and Amara decided to respect that. Maybe someday she'd search for him, but for now, she had enough family to navigate. A year after that first devastating conversation in Ji-hoon's apartment, Amara stood in Min-ji's kitchen helping prepare Sunday dinner for the whole family. Her adoptive parents had flown in from Lagos to meet Min-ji officially, and watching the two mothers in her life laugh together over shared stories of Amara's childhood felt surreal and wonderful. "Hey," Ji-hoon appeared at her elbow, stealing a piece of the vegetables she was cutting. "Your mom wants to know if you'll play piano after dinner. Apparently, you never told me you played. There's a lot you don't know about me yet." Amara smiled. We're still getting reacquainted, remember? True. He leaned against the counter, watching her work. But I'm a patient man. I've got all the time in the world to learn everything about you. That sounds suspiciously like a romantic statement, and we agreed we're taking things slow. We are taking things slow. Doesn't mean I can't appreciate the view while we walk. Amara threw a piece of carrot at him, which he caught and ate with a grin. From the living room, she could hear Minji telling her adoptive mother Ruth about Amara's first birthday, the one she couldn't remember. Ruth was sharing stories about Amara's third birthday in Lagos, the first one she'd celebrated with them. It wasn't perfect. There were still hard days when Amara grieved for the childhood she'd lost with Minji, or when the cultural differences between her Nigerian upbringing and Korean heritage felt insurmountable. There were days when she resented the choices that had been made for her, when she wondered who she might have been if she'd grown up in Seoul instead of Lagos. But there were more days when she felt grateful for the strange, complicated path that had led her here. She had two mothers who loved her, siblings on two continents, a career she was building in a country that felt both foreign and like home, and a man who'd lost everything to help her find the truth. If you'd told her a year ago that discovering a hidden baby photo would lead to all of this, she wouldn't have believed it. But as she looked around Minji's kitchen filled with the people who mattered most to her, she realized that sometimes the truth, no matter how painful, was worth finding. You look happy, Ji-hoon observed. I am happy, Amara said, surprising herself with how much she meant it. It took losing everything I thought I knew to find this, but I'm happy. Good. He took her hand briefly, just a quick squeeze, then let go. You deserve to be happy. You always did. From the living room, Minji called out that dinner was ready. As everyone gathered around the table, joining hands for a prayer that seamlessly blended Korean, Nigerian, and English traditions, Amara felt a sense of belonging she'd been missing her whole life without knowing it. She was Kim Amara. She was Okafor Amara. She was Korean and Nigerian and something entirely her own. And that was enough. If you've been following Amara's journey from confusion to clarity, from loss to belonging, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any future stories. Drop a comment below about your own experiences with family, identity, or finding where you belong. And if this story moved you, hit that like button. Sometimes the most complicated paths lead us exactly where we need to be.